Welcome to episode 7 of 𝗪𝗲𝗶𝗀 on Demand. We're now in the middle of season 1. Thank you all for your continued support. Aside from an exclusive interview with the founders of the Legion of Racers, in this week's show, we check out the world's best example of a supercar. As always, thank you for spending your time with me. Our current plan is to run 12 episodes for season 1 of 𝗪𝗲𝗶𝗀 on Demand, this being episode 7, Halfway Point. We have a very special treat for you this week, especially so if you're into sim racing, as I speak with the founders of Southeast Asia's largest and fastest growing eSports, e-racing, e-league organizers, the Legion of Racers. But let's start off with a segment of 𝗪𝗲𝗶𝗀, and there's no better way than for us to drool at what can only be described as the truest form of a supercar. What you see here is the all-new T50, created by world-renowned designer and legendary race engineer Gordon Murray. Having lived an extremely illustrious career in Formula 1 spanning over 2 decades, he helped design some of the most iconic and successful cars ever created for champions such as Nelson Piquet, Alain Prost, and Ayrton Senna. Legendary as he already was, he went on to design some of the world's best-known supercars, such as the McLaren F1 and the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren. In celebration of his half-a-century dedication to motorsports, as well as an enthronement to his successes as a designer, engineer, and above all else, master artist, the T50 was conceptualized and now unveiled to the world. Given the limited time I have, it will be impossible for me to explain what a phenomenal project this is. Also, I won't be able to do it justice. It's like giving you or me a Formula 1 car. Yeah, we'll be crazy excited, but let's be honest, we'll be unable to truly appreciate and maximize its full potential. Alright, let's talk numbers. Naturally aspirated 3.9-liter V12, highest revving road production car engine ever built, singing to a red line record-breaking 12,100 RPM. Furthermore, this beautiful piece of neck-breaking art weighs in at only 980 kilograms, which makes it half the weight of a Bugatti Veyron. Absolutely mental. Made it to its screaming V12, a tactile short-throw 6-speed manual with a narrow crossgate for the best gear shifting one could possibly imagine. Notice how amazingly clean all its aerodynamic lines are, without large and obscene GT wings or vents. This 400mm rear-mounted fan dominates the rear and significantly expands the car's performance capabilities. Working in perfect harmony with active rear spoilers and interactive diffusers, the fan increases downforce by 50%, and while in braking, 100% more downforce is generated. Aerodynamic drag is also reduced by a staggering 12.5%. On the inside, the finest quality choices make everything you touch feel direct, sexy, and focused. Everything is milled out of solid pieces. Everything is designed solely for the driver experience. The driver sits in the middle, allowing him or her the best control of the supercar and keeping the weight perfectly balanced.
When we designed the T50, we were absolutely focused on driving perfection. Everything we put into the design was to ensure the greatest driving experience. This is the ultimate analog supercar.
Salute to what has to be the most impressive work of automotive art. Nay, automotive masterpiece in our current era. As always, for the full story and more, visit us at www.𝗪𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀.com. In an age where supercar manufacturers such as Ferrari, Lamborghini, and McLaren continue to struggle with their balancing act between pleasing corporate management and shareholders and building cars to satisfy the demands of their consumers, this isn't just a breath of fresh air. This is a true and proper salute to the designers, engineers, and mechanics of an era that will soon be disappearing in its entirety in the years to come. As we continue to see firsthand this seismic shift in the automotive industry, there is another new age sector that has been growing and developing fast, and that is the sim racing industry. Let us now jump into this week's episode of Conversations with 𝗪𝗲𝗀. Sim racing, short for simulator or simulated racing, is basically the more refined type of racing games, which spans from car racing, motorcycle racing, and other sports. As many of you already know, there are 2 main threads, and while both were sort of designed for fun, the general objectives are different. On one end, you have racing games that are extreme in the sense of how it may defy physics, such as games that require you to smash into competitors for extra points, or games that allow you to pick up bonuses or power-ups during the race. On the other end, you have sim racing, which is designed to replicate as closely as possible real-life physics, dimensions, and other attributes such as weather, fuel consumption, tire wear, damage, etc. To help us better understand the industry, as well as a look at their annual online e-league, are the founders of the Legion of Racers. But before we zoom in, here's a quick look at who they are and what they do. So with us today, we have Mr. 𝗪𝗲𝗀𝗋 and Mr. 𝗪𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀 from the Legion of Racers. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks, Ong.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So first question to 𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗀. You guys first formed the Legion of Racers back in 2018, and since then have expanded successfully, becoming one of the largest and most active sim racing leagues in Southeast Asia. So what were some of your objectives at the beginning, and have they changed over the course of these past 2 years?
Well, thanks for having us, Ong. And yeah, I think, from day one when we first started, we've laid out our objectives of really bringing esports, or rather sim racing, closer to the community and really the two arenas of physical motorsports and gaming together. I think we saw that early on as an opportunity. I think through the years, the objectives haven't really changed. I think in a way got us to adapt our business models and also our directions, really just more of the environment and externally affecting us, and also more understanding the topic more in detail. So I think as we go along, we actually learn, and really through community, really understand the complexities of it and unraveling more potential out of that. But just in short, just to reiterate what we've always believed in as part of the company value, right, or culture, would be growing the sports, right, and bring really motorsports to the community via this digital platform, right. And as mentioned earlier, we saw this opportunity of bringing this digital to physical experience, which I think the folks that understand a bit more of Melvin and my background in racing, especially more so with Melvin as a professional race car driver, came up from the karting ranks up to race internationally in GT cars, and also in the past Formula cars too. So, we understand the difficulties in motorsports, and we wanted to use esports as a way of unlocking that growth potential and really connecting to those communities that can't access physical motorsports. And we do that also, from very early onset, we talked about tapping on or establishing a pathway, right? Being race car drivers ourselves, going through rigorous training, and especially Melvin's background in talent development, we wanted to really showcase and develop a know-how with our partners and contacts to really create a credible pathway, right? Starting from esports, and hopefully, one day, if the right situation brings itself, you have that connection to physical racing. So yeah, how we started, we really started by growing the sports with the community, right, and promoting it with the community through, physical events. We did one of our first early partnerships with 𝗪𝗏𝗏, the Lions Meet, connecting with car clubs, car owners, right, and then even by any means, that would be a fairly large-scale event, all the way to a large event like the largest one to date that we've done so far is the Festival of Speed, again, also done together with 𝗪𝗏𝗏. We really wanted to embody the notion of motorsports for all, right? So then you saw contents from esports all the way down to karting and remote control cars, and even a party, right? After that. So just to sum up a bit more on the physical aspects of the events for last year, we also had launched our studio, again, the facility where we get the community to come in and really try out equipment and the games. I think we found out that actually through the events that the community really likes to come together and meet physically and interact with each other, and then also that culminated to our finals last year where we went from digital and online, championship, that I think for the first time we've started connecting to other regions in Southeast Asia like Philippines and Indonesia. And I think that culminated to a finals in October in GameStart. There were many communities that got together, individuals from Indonesia who haven't met each other physically before. And, I think that was great for the community. And in terms of pathways, I think the main two pillars within that would be really our esports team, the talent development, the talents that we've got through, handpicking them through a competition, right? Our online league. We ensure actually we are getting, we stress test them through the league, and then we are picking what the better talents out there in Asia. And we've pretty much, within our first year, picked quite a few gems, right? So we have guys like Alif, who's been crowned Asia Pac champion with McLaren Shadow Project, and then Jaden and Jason themselves too got some pretty good achievements in karting, showing that there's application, the sim racing side, the digital side with karting. So they were also crowned, they were Asia champions too for endurance race in Malaysia, right? Pressed on with our courses, more sort of tailor-made courses that we've been doing. We were in talks with some schools to incorporate some sports science training program with us. Those discussions went pretty deep. Unfortunately, because of the situation, we put it on hold at the moment. But there were others that actually through the community came to us in our sim racing studio and did smaller intimate courses for them. So folks like Grip Academy, they came to learn how to drive, in Sepang or 𝗪𝗪𝗪, before heading over, right? Those were the main key starting points that we started off, at least for the first 2 years. And obviously this year, I think is, everyone can kind of see the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? That obviously a few of our initial initiatives and plans were put on hold. So, we were trying to expand the physical studio race facility to again build on a place where the community could physically meet and via events or if not community sessions, but obviously that's been put on hold. But then we've completely gone from, I would say, 60-70% of our activity physically from last year on to almost now 100% online. And I think there were, in that short amount of time, I think we've managed to hit some success. It hasn't been particularly easy, but I think we managed pretty well. So obviously our online championship will be one that's ongoing now. We have expanded our reach into new markets like Hong Kong via our partners. Thailand, we still kept to the markets Indonesia and Philippines, and those have grown strong through our esports team and our athletes around there, keeping in touch with the community. Yeah, and then we also launched the Friday sessions. We know that you've taken part in quite a few times. One of our key mainstays of Friday sessions. We've seen that grown strength to strength through the week, and pretty happy that went quite well. And we're still building on that momentum really. And there's many, whether it's technical things or the way we communicate, reach out to community. I think those things it's a learning process along the way. And I think we've also taken one of our partnerships with the Rice Company, which is a non-profit organization, right? It gave us a really good opportunity, unique opportunity where we could actually conduct online classes to help the underprivileged students during the circuit breaker period. There was no avenue for them to be at home. So then we recreated courses for them ranging from eSports to sim racing, and I think there were other folks in the group, the consortium like 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝘀cie𝗱𝗲 that did other esports genre titles, right? And the main thing was really to create esports as an avenue to social good and also engage the students so that they don't feel left out during this period. In a way that has uncovered a lot of new opportunities for us, and we are building on that. I think we've also strengthened our partnership. So we've gone, obviously our mainstay partnerships with Nitro, also Monster and Logitech, but we also brought on new ones like 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪, so AIM, which was the most recent signing that we have. So 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 is a Hong Kong-based model car production company, right, that produces collectible cars, and they have a very strong connection to car collecting culture, right? So then we've done that first delivery, design competition where we got the community to vote. It got 4,000 over votes for the competition, and the winner would have that special livery design car, so which Nissan GT-R, right? So then I think that went quite well, and you see more and more information in our Facebook page along the way when production really received those final units. And then finally, AIM is a data analysis
Data logger.
data logging system, right? Yeah, so there's traditionally started from race cars. Being race car drivers, we use those systems a lot to analyze our driving styles, our driving methods, right, and see how to improve using data to how we best can improve. And they've actually gone into sim racing, seeing that huge opportunity there, and we are working with their Singapore division, and we are rolling out those units within our sim racing studios, right, and then using those systems not only to train our esports team, but also as a way of conducting classes and training for general public. Yeah, that's where we're heading. There's obviously more initiatives that are in planning, but yeah, I think happy to share more of those in due time. It's been pretty exciting.
Well, on behalf of Team Nitro, we have to thank you for the opportunity given to us to having been a part of your journey from day one. So thank you. Now onward to the next question. Next question over to Melvin. Now, we know that it's extremely challenging to coordinate so many participants, especially now in this year's season with over 70 participants. So to coordinate so many participants from all around the world and all the added challenges of having to host multiple lobbies simultaneously, what are some of the biggest challenges you guys have faced, and how are you guys planning to improve on those challenges and or the experience altogether in time to come?
Yeah, so again, first off, thanks for having me today. I think as you said, this year we've been very thankful that, our participants, the number of participants grew from 30 plus to 75 this year. So as you know, regarding the online league, we are using 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝘀cie𝗱𝗲 Sport, and unfortunately we are limited by the number of players in the lobby. So when you have 25 drivers, then you would need at least 5 lobbies to cater for all of them. Now, the biggest challenge, as you mentioned, is to host 5 lobbies at the same time, and then for all the 75 participants to connect to the server at the same time. So this is the biggest challenge for us. However, after 1 or 2 rounds, we do face some issues, but we are constantly trying to improve the experience for the participants. So how do we do it is, first off, we have already have a dedicated line in our studio, is to ensure that we have the full maximum speed that we can host for the league, and also checking with the participants what sort of connections they are using, whether they are using Wi-Fi or cable, also to guide them what sort of settings are the best in order to join our league. So that's the major challenge that we face. But I would say after 2 rounds, I think things are getting better. We face less dropouts from the participants. However, I think as most of the guys also know that there is some sort of small issues within the game itself where sometimes they couldn't start being on the grid, and this is really out of our control sometimes. So I think we are thankful that they understand this point, and it is something for, I would say, GD Sport to also solve, and hopefully they solve it in the next edition of 𝗘𝗃𝗄𝗎𝗪𝒻𝒄 7, which is, I think, most of the players are looking forward to. Yep.
All right, brilliant. Thank you. So question back to Kyung-Wee. So the number of participants in esports and e-racing clearly have increased tremendously over the years, a little bit more so over the past few months due to COVID, the pandemic. So in your professional assessment, what are some of your forecasts and expectations for the industry as a whole? And if I may just add on one more question to that, is how would you differentiate the Legion of Races apart from some of the other organizers in this part of the world?
Right. For the first part of the question, the outlook is definitely positive. I think going from a macro picture of general esports, we do see a stronger uptake from every aspect, from gaming subscriptions to game downloads to general content taken in by the gamers, right? I think with respect to sim racing, I think the industry has seen that growth and participated really well in that growth as compared to other years. Why is that? Really is simply because the physical events, especially namely the larger ones, one, and even in GT Racing 2, 𝗪𝗲𝗀 and all that has been heavily impacted, and so I think they're kind of forced to move on onto a physical platform, right? So we've seen bigger names like Formula 1 and even Formula E, right, hosting and even accelerating their participation in esports. You also seen rise of independent organizers, similarly like us, with more traction and more visibility in Europe, for namely like the the folks like the race, which is owned by the former Formula One 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝗀. They have become a multifaceted entity where they become not only race organizers but also content streamers, and they also host race. They also do have an esports team themselves. So, and you see folks like Team Red Line with Max Verstappen and Lando Norris getting more into racing simulation. The industry by far, I think, has seen a lot of added activity online, and yeah, I think it's generally good when you see high-profile names like the Formula One drivers, as mentioned earlier. You know, even Sebastian Vettel and Carlos Sainz are getting to that. We have celebrities, golf stars like Ian Poulter and all that are on all-star races. So you see different personalities in there, which is great coverage for the sport. I think the outlook is good, and then I think given these uncertain times, that as long as physical events are being impacted, I think that growth will still continue. On to the second part of the question, where do we position ourselves as compared to the other competitors, or other, I wouldn't say competitors, but other colleagues in the industry. I would say first is by location. We are predominantly Southeast Asian based, and I think from the early onset we've made it really clear in terms of our position that we're nowhere near the larger names, namely like Formula One and Formula E and all that. I think those are really high level competition, large leagues. For us, we really position ourselves clearly from day one as a platform to the community, right? So I think we stuck to that core values from day one, right? So as I mentioned earlier, the main pillars like pathway and also talent development, the esports team, which I mentioned a bit more later about their development and how they're doing. I think these are the main differences that we see, the differentiating factor between us and the other organizers. That other than it just being a race per se, we also do other activities and engage the community and build, in a way, a knowledge ground up. And we involve our athletes very closely with in terms of giving back to the community and training too. So I think moving forward, you see more initiatives like those where we reach out to schools and also other untapped communities that have great potential to uncover and convert them into sim racing. Yeah, so I think that's, I would say, one of our main key differences with the other competitors. Yeah.
Fantastic as always. So final question. I'm sorry, but we are running out of time. This one will be directed at Melvin. I've had the good fortune to have competed in a race or a few races with 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝗀. That was over a decade ago. Naturally, you have progressed very far up the competition levels in terms of motorsports. Melvin, you've been racing as well for well over 10 years, predominantly in GT3 level. So this question is a little bit of a curveball. Having been a professional race driver for such a long time, and now in esports as an organizer, as well as a part-time participant, if I may, what are some of the biggest, I wouldn't say challenges, but the similarities or differences that you as a professional feel when you compete in both levels or both categories?
I think for sure, I mean, when you compete in physical racing or GT3, for example, I think the biggest challenge for a driver is always finding the budget. And I think the good thing about sim racing is it's very accessible. Sure, it's still a little bit more expensive than other esports titles like Dota, for example. But, compared to the cost that you need to spend to even have a foot inside motorsport, I think it's a huge difference. And the barrier of entry, it's pretty accessible, I would say. In terms of the driving coming from the motorsport side, I would say it's a bit against sometimes my natural feeling. Because, for example, what you experience in real life, like certain corners, it may not be flat in real life, but in the game it's flat. So to sort of tweak your mind and try to do it in the game, it takes some time to get used to it. And the biggest difference is you don't feel the G-force while playing the simulator. And yeah, I mean, normally all the feelings come from, I would say, my bump. But in sim racing, it's all via your hands, via the steering wheel. So yeah, I think that's the biggest difference I felt so far competing. And I must say, the sim races are quick. They are really, really quick. Like Alif, who has our sim racer who has more than 10 years of experience. He's on a very good level now, and it's quite difficult to match him. But I believe it's also the same when it comes to the other way around, when he jumps into the real thing. So yeah.
Okay, well, one last bit, continuing on that thread, in that line of questioning. So one of your favorite race circuits in real life, I know, is Suzuka. And I also know that you do very well in sim racing at Suzuka. You have done both simultaneously. Which helped you more? The fact that you went from a real GT3 racing in Suzuka and then going into esports, or was it the other way around that helped you become a better driver?
I mean, I must say, before I actually drove in Suzuka for the first time, I sort of used the Gran Turismo to learn the track. So I think using the simulator or the racing game did help me a lot of learning the corners and trying to understand roughly what gears I should take in real life and so on. But when I jumped from, let's say, from the real thing back to the sim, like this year when I did a lot of races during the lockdown period, I honestly think it don't really help me that much coming from the physical side, because the feeling of driving in a simulator is, as I mentioned just now, it's quite different. Yeah, the feeling you get is not same like the real thing. So I needed time to get used to the game that I was playing. And even then, in sim racing, from one game to another game, even though with the same track at the same car, you need some sort of different feeling and skills to get a great lap time. So I think it's just all about practice. So in short, sim racing did help me in real life, but the other way around, not so much, I would say.
Okay, well, hopefully our viewers will also learn from that and understand a little bit better for their future aspirations.
Yeah.
Once again, Melvin, 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝘀, thank you both very much for your time, gentlemen. And we wish you all the best for this year's Legion of Racers and the seasons to come. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. The guys at the Legion of Racers also have a spanking sexy studio here in Singapore. So if you're keen to get a taste of sim racing, or if you're looking for some professional guidance, look them up. That's all we got for you in this week's episode of Nitro On Demand. Thank you for your time. Hong here, signing off.